In this video, I'm going to divide my peonies, but I'm specifically going to divide one in a container that's grown too big and really didn't flower its best this year because I felt as though it was struggling. But honestly, the method I'm going to show you in this video, you can do with any peony, whether it's a container peony or one you've planted in the ground. Now, don't do this with new peonies that have only been planted a year or two. You need a peony that's well established and that has grown significantly since you planted it, because otherwise it's going to be too small to divide and you could damage it, or you could be waiting years again for it to recover and flower. So make sure you are digging up or dividing an established peony. You'll want your peony to be minimum 3 years of age in the location that it has been growing in. So in this video, I'm going to show you step by step how I'm going to divide my peonies. So I'm going to release it from the container, and then I'm going to show you step by step how you can divide your peonies if they need to be moved, thinned out, transplanted, or for whatever reason. If you're moving house and you want to take a portion of your peony with you, then of course this is how you would do it. So this one in the container has really outgrown the container, and this year it didn't flower very well, whereas the previous year it had flowered really well. So what you want to do is you want to get it out without damaging too much of the roots, and they have like tubers, they're a bit like dahlias. So if you're familiar with dahlias, your peony is going to look a little bit like that under the soil. And we don't want to damage it because it's got new tips, new soft shoots coming up already pre-winter. So we want to preserve those and we don't want to damage them. So the way I'm doing it is just gradually ease around the pot until I can safely remove the entire plant without damaging it. And I just do that by sort of excavating around the edge really until it comes loose from the pot. And then I could finally just pull it out. It came out in one clump. So once you've got your peony out of the pot, you need to take a good look at it and you need to look at the eyes. So the new shoots that are coming up, these are going to be the new flower stems for next year. So you really need to be careful not to damage those. Now, some people hose off all the soil at this point, but I don't like to make a muddy mess. So I was just taking the dry soil off as much as I could so I could see what I'd got here, what size plant I've got here and where all the tubers are. And here you can see the new shoots. Let's get a close up here of the new shoots. And there are lots of them on the other side as well, which I'll just show you. Here's a close up of this one here. Let's turn it round. You can see these other ones here. And then there are some smaller ones a little bit deeper. So these are what you need to be mindful of when you're going to decide to cut your peony in half. What you need is 3 to 5 of those little eyes on each new peony that you're going to make. So when you're deciding where you're going to cut, you need to bear that in mind so that you end up with a minimum of 3 on each piece of peony that you're going to cut. But the first thing I'm going to do before I cut it is to get rid of all these stems. Now I left the stems on just so you can see where you're digging up, how big the plant is, etc. And it gives you a guide for digging them up, etc. And now I'm going to cut them off because I don't need them anymore. And it's a good time, by the way, even if you're not digging up and dividing your peony, it's a really good time now to just cut these leaves off and tidy the plant up. Now, I decided in the end that I had a natural break between 2 sides of this tuber where there was about 5 on one side and 3 and 4 shoots on another side. So I decided I was only going to split this one into 2. But obviously your tuber could be much bigger, which means you could cut it into several more pieces. But as you can see here, there's a nice division on each side of this peony. So I'm more or less going to cut it in about a half, but I'm going to try and do it in such a way as to preserve all these shoots. Now I've got this fantastic little handheld saw here, which is perfect for cutting perennials, and it comes with its own sheath, which can be attached to your belt. So if you want one of these, I'll link the Amazon link in the description. And don't forget, it's an affiliate link, which means if you do buy one, I might get like, I don't know, a penny. Anyway, I'll link it in the description anyhow. So here we are. So I found my gap where I'm going to split my peony and then I'm going to saw away. And it is a bit brutal, but just take it gently and you will cut some of the tubers. There's no way to avoid that, but don't worry, they will survive. And then what I do is I have a little saw through and then I double check to make sure that I'm not going the wrong way and cutting any shoots off. And basically just take your time, especially if it's the first time you've ever done it. And as you can see there, I just tried to tease them apart, but it still needed a little bit more sawing. And so I sawed it right down to the bottom, and now I have two exact replica peonies of the same one, which I can pot up. And they're perfect. This one is slightly bigger than the other one and has slightly more shoots. So obviously I'll put that one in a bigger pot, and the other one is more narrow, so that can go in a smaller pot. Now, when it comes to the pots, peonies like deep roots. So you'll see when you get a peony in the garden centre that it's a deep pot, like this green one here. Usually you get them in these kinds of long tubs here. So I'm going to plant them up, one in a nice container, this terracotta container, and the other one is going to go in the green container. But you can see just by measuring it here, how much space the peony still has to grow before it will get confined and I'll need to move it. But this is really basically, I should have told you, I'm getting an allotment. So I'm thinking I might move one of the peonies over to the allotment, which was another reason for digging it up and dividing it like this. So when I pot them up, I obviously just put a bit of terracotta pot in the broken terracotta pots to stop the hole here getting clogged up, because you want good drainage, and that's the same with most plants. And then I used some of the old soil that I knocked off the peony, and I used some lovely fresh compost that's going to have some nice new nutrients, and it's going to hold the water a bit better. But then also to combat that, I'm going to also put a bit of sharp sand in it so that it can drain really well as well. And I'm not really going to measure it too much, but this is the old peony compost. And I've got some new compost mixed in. Add some sharp sand and some more compost, and give it all a bit of a mix so that it's evenly distributed. But there's no rocket science. This is just how I'm doing it to fill up the space, so that you're not always using really expensive compost from scratch. You're using some of the old compost for a bit of bulk. Otherwise, it gets really expensive potting up all these plants all the time. As you can see, that fits beautifully in there. It's got space to grow. So I'll just top it off now with all my best compost. And this is compost I also mixed earlier with a bit of sharp sand in it. But remember, when you're potting up or even planting out a peony, that you don't bury it too deeply. And as you can see here, the crown is almost still exposed. And I'm just going to keep gradually adding a bit of compost over that so that it's barely covered. If you cover it too deeply, it won't grow. And if you want to see my video on my top tips on everything I know about peonies, then I'll link that video in the description with a bit more detail generally about peony care. But this is as deep as I'm going to sow this, and it's barely just covered those emerging buds that are coming through. Then I give it a bit of a water just to make sure that the compost drains well and that the compost is settled into the plant pot, just to determine whether I need to add any more soil. And then that's really it. So I'm just going to quickly pot up the second peony, and I'm going to do it in exactly the same way, using some of this reserved, discarded compost from the previous container, bit of sharp sand, and then my nice new compost full of nutrients, etc. And then I'm going to mix it all up like I did before. And then I'm going to rest the peony on this first half of compost that I filled up in the pot. And then I will fill up around that, again, remembering not to cover the crown too deeply. It's barely a sprinkle over that crown, and then water it in as before. And then that's it. You've basically now got two identical peonies from your original peony. This is a great project. You can give it as a gift to someone you love, or, if you're moving house, you can keep a plant that you love. So if you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with anyone who you think might be interested. And I'll see you again in my next video. Don't forget to check out the links in the description below for related videos or products. See you again. Bye.